Welcome back to this episode of Transitioning Humanitarians Live with Viki. Hi, Viki.
Hi, Asel. Hello, everyone.
Yes, so we are continuing the conversation around family and transitioning with family. And in this episode, we thought of talking about this somewhat maybe particular situation where women humanitarian having small children and then having them back home and then while they still continue working or they start working, whatever the situation may be, right? And then having a lot of feelings around that and what to do and how to deal with them. This is the topic that we want to get specific about because this is one of those situations where we can see a lot of the societal expectations and patriarchal impact and how to unpack it really. So that's I thought we can
Mhm.
start maybe Vicky the like from your experience, what are the societal expectations that we all have that if that's happening, how would you say your clients, maybe the people you know are feeling in that situation?
Yeah, it's a thank you for the question. I think it's a very difficult subject because, as you're mentioning, the societal expectations and attributed gender roles that exist in societies are really making it, I would say, quite difficult for a lot of women to be able to take a decision that it would be good for themselves and good for their children or good for the family, and somehow also be in conformity with the gender or with societal expectations, right? And then there is always very often a lot of tension that creates all sorts of negative feelings with the women that are really taking a decision. So I would really think that whatever decision very often women take, they will always be criticized. It doesn't matter whether they take a decision of I choose to be with my children and not to do what I want to do, whether it's
Yeah.
transitioning or whether it's going for the assignment, or if I choose to leave my children with families, with grandparents or the father or whatever it is, and choose to go on an assignment. So I think there is no easy this or no easy decision in a sense that would leave a woman, if we are as we are talking about women in this session, that would leave the woman in feeling without some negative feelings or lightly. I think there is always some burden that most of the women would feel, and I
Yeah.
think this is really the societal pressures that I believe practically every woman would find herself under.
Yes. I find that one of the biggest ways that patriarchy has influenced our way of thinking is, or conditioned us maybe to think, is that us wanting to apologize for who we're being and what we're doing, right? And I see that so much in my own experience, and I can see from a lot of other humanitarians as well. And I have also seen the other thing that I actually wrote down because I didn't want to forget is that I have looked at like two main feelings that come up
Mhm.
when we're making such decision or when we're in having made the decision and now actually working in the field maybe,
Yeah.
but still feelings of feeling judged, right? Or and feeling guilty basically. These are I think the two major feelings that come up,
Yeah.
and if that is you, whoever who's listening and watching us, so I wanted to offer what that makes us do because I found it also very surprising to me at least that both feelings of judged and feeling guilty make us do the same things.
Yes.
So I'm going to read them out to you because I wrote them down so that you can actually like let it sink in if that resonates with you, right? So when we feel judged or feeling guilty, this is what we tend to do. We explain things a lot to other people as to why we made this decision or why we're making this decision, right? So in other words, we feel like everyone else in the family has to now be convinced that what we're doing is the right thing, in quotes. We then, and of course, we get stressed out a lot about that as well. we also want to immediately go to reverse things in case people don't like our decisions, right? And we're like, oh, let me then go back and change what I want because I see you're not happy. I mean, I'm the champion of doing that. You used to do that, so I can so hear that.
Yeah.
The other one is second guessing whether we made the right decision or made whether we ruined now everything for everyone. Like we have a lot of this exaggerated mode of thinking, right? Oh, that means that now my children are gonna grow up being this, and that's only because I messed up or only because I did this. And I think this is something that we hear so much. The other one that we tend to do is then we don't give weight to what we're actually making decision about instead of what all everyone else is thinking about it, basically,
Hmm.
right? And therefore it becomes like our decision versus their decision, and then because we're in this state of stress and feeling already guilty, then of course we put more weight to others' feelings rather than our own feeling, and therefore it becomes so complicated to make a decision or to stay with the decision or to live with the decision afterwards. And what we end up doing is we make ourselves wrong, basically,
Hmm.
right? It's like the way I was saying before is that we apologize for who we are or what we want. We feel like we shouldn't be wanting that now that we have kids and we have
Yeah.
responsibility, and we feel like we need to just forget about what we're wanting now that we need to prioritize the children.
Hmm.
And then what ends up leading us to do is basically not being present with what we
Yeah.
have, because now we are wanting constantly like reassure others that whether they're having a good time, whether they are okay, and whether this and whether that, and therefore we just keep feeling like pressured all of the time in the situation of it's temporary, and we tell ourselves
Hmm.
that um, we just need to like go back as soon as we can, and all of these things that makes us feel this is not right what we're doing, basically.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I'm hearing you, and it's absolutely as I was as you were talking about the two main feelings. I was really sort of nodding my head because really it is very common. And as you were talking about really the sort of justification that we really are trying to justify our decision to others, but I think we are also trying to justify the situation to ourselves. So really
Yes.
convince ourselves, and really the two negative feelings, the judge. I think this is something, the judging, it's present for everyone every day. It's the question how often we judge, and whilst we may catch ourselves judging others or judging
Yeah.
situations, we actually are judging ourselves the most, and this is what we often don't even realize. So self judgments as to, oh, if I don't do this and sacrifice my life, I'm not a good mother or good person or good
Yes.
sister or whatever that is. And we actually, I think, I would suggest that one of the very important steps is to be aware of our own judgments, how
Yeah.
harsh we are with ourselves. And this is how we often see it. And I see it often with clients that are women, mothers that don't allow themselves very little. It's always trying to please and make sure everyone is okay, comes first, and then I allow myself. But this then, of course, plays into sort of a negative spiral that I don't think of myself
Yes.
equally as I don't think of my needs equally as I think of the needs of the others, whether it's my children, my parents, my partner, whatever it is. And this is, I think, so here I would say, think of all the judgments that you have about yourself. So this is important to be aware. And also, as an antidote to that is like, how can you empathize with yourself? What is the empathy that you show yourself? The same empathy you show the others. How can you show yourself empathy? I would
Yes.
leave it here for this moment.
Yeah. So I also wanted to suggest that I think, I mean, we all maybe have a good incentive to do this exercise where we define for ourselves what being a good person, being a good mother means. And I think we oftentimes equate being a good mother means I'm supposed to do all the things that other moms are doing in my
Mhm.
children's school or whatever, right? And we just believe that that's how it is. But we now live in a world where movement and living in different countries is always accessible to us, especially as humanitarians. Many of us maybe don't want to limit ourselves to living in one country, right? So for instance, I have a client who says that I actually don't want my children to live in Spain, where she's from, but she wants her children to be exposed to many different cultures,
Yeah.
and that's how she chooses lifestyle.
Mhm.
And other people do that only in one place, right? So there's so many different modalities that we can choose from, or we may choose from. So that's why, like, questioning yourself as to what you currently believe the good mother means
Yeah.
versus what you actually want good mother mean to you, what
Yeah.
that actually means, right? So I would assume, like, at least for me being a child of my mother, I would assume that if my mother said, I want to do things for myself, I don't want to sacrifice my life just because the
Yeah.
society says this is what I should do. I would be like, yes, mom, that's exactly what I want, right?
Yeah.
That's like as from the children's perspective, obviously.
Mhm.
But when our children are small, of course, we may not really know what's going on, and of course, we do our best. But I would really like suggest that these are what some of the exercises we can do. Another one is like I am egoistic if I do XYZ and I shouldn't be, right? So question those concepts as well as to what that really means,
Mhm.
being an egoistic, and what it means to you and why do you believe this. And I think the third one that I really want to like bring awareness to is think about all the ways you're showing up now because you feel judged or because you feel guilty, and do you really want to continue that way? And I feel like we all have this option to, once we have made the decision, we always have the option to then decide, okay, how do I want to now continue? Beating up myself is an option, but is that really the good option, right? So what can be other alternatives, and challenging yourself could be a way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I've also observed that the when we are trying to explain or sort of please the others, it's usually when we ourselves are not so sure. So I believe that once we are really sure about our decision and we know that this decision was taken having taken all the aspects into account and having answered to the core problem, or what is my core problem, or core issue that I'm dealing with. Well, I want to offer my children diverse experience, for example, from what you're saying, right? Or I want to provide my children with this or that. So I think it's really important that I, as a parent, am convinced that this is going to help them. This is going to be the right thing for them. And once we are convinced, I think ourselves. It's easy to just explain it to others that this is it, and people will always judge. People will always judge. There is no situation where people will be always happy with the decision you are taking for yourself or for your children. So I really think the inner work of being sure that, okay, this is what it means to be a good parent. It means that I will provide my children with this. I think that's, I would say, probably the core of what we are talking about.
Yes, I love that. And also, I was thinking about, like, similar to what you're saying, Viki, and I think the way I'm thinking about it is what are the like reasons why we would want to do that anyway,
Mhm.
right? What are the reasons that are, even if maybe we're not sure how it will play out in the end, in the long run, and all of these things, because we know by now that, like, I don't know, being present 24/7 parents or not being present 24/7 parents, like outcomes are so diverse, no matter. And it doesn't mean, of course, that there is no like effective way of parenting. And I'm assuming like parents, they know what their methods are. But I'm just wanting to invite people to think about this is these are the reasons that make sense to me, that I like, that I want, and therefore I want to pursue it, even if there are so many other arguments for not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I like those reasons. And for instance, if I have children, I would always think about, yes, I want to be more for my children, but also I want to be for myself. And how do I do that? Right. And how do I do that in a way that I feel really trust that what I'm making a decision is in the time when I made this decision is the right one for me as a parent. And then I trust that my children will understand as they grow up. And if they don't, I will also hold space for it. But in the time, this
Yeah.
is the decision I made. And I don't want to punish myself for it, or I don't want to regret it, or I don't want to keep feeling guilty, because that actually has the
Mhm.
negative impact on the children as well, I
Yeah.
assume, right? Because like uh, like we were now looking at our mom's decisions, right? And then seeing, okay, maybe if my mom could enjoy her life in this way or could do these things for herself, then I would be very happy. She didn't do it, but now I have a chance to do that. And sometimes I feel like I now have a chance to enjoy life even for my mom and her mom who couldn't do at the
Yeah.
time, right? So it feels like now I have more chances of making differences and different choices in my life than they maybe had, and making that generational change. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that concept. So that's why I invite you to think about what are the reasons for you that would say, yes, I want to be this role model for my children.
Yeah.
I want to be this person for my children. I want to model these values for my children, and therefore I'm doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a beautiful image that you painted, and I think that's the more examples like that there are, I believe the more diverse
Yeah,
the environment around us is going to be, and
yeah,
that's beautiful, because we cannot all live one way of life. I mean, it doesn't suit for everyone to live one way of life, and be to what we started with, to really follow the expectations of the society. So the more diverse the environment is, I think the better for everyone else around us, to be
yes,
able to have the liberty to choose um, what is good for me as a person, as a parent, and what is good for my children.
yes, absolutely. So I feel like one of the like very tangible ways that we can also change systems is exactly those, right? And noticing how the systems impact on us. Like we talk about women's oppression, we talk about um, discrimination in so many different ways, and how patriarchy has impacted us in so many ways. And we're studying that a lot as well. And sometimes when we are like studying or engaging in discussions, it may sound like very abstract things, right? And like not relatable maybe at times. So that's why I love to think about like what are the ways that I can live my life in the way that then makes that shift, and how they may that choice may impact other people in their lives as well. And I think like thinking in those terms for me at least makes me feel good about my decisions instead of like eating myself up with uh, like guilty or other feelings that I may have, right? So that's why think about what's like what suits for you best, but you can always make your own choices and decisions as to how you want to feel about this, how you want
Mhm.
to um, think about it, and how you act from that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Vicky, anything we've missed?
No, I mean, one of these subjects that we could discuss for so long, and like every person would have their own story that they have either experienced themselves, or or seen in others. But I just maybe would like to invite that if colleagues are interested to bring their own stories, that we talk about their stories or their challenges within families, or within dealing with similar questions, and we'll be happy to to take that, and if it's necessary, we can anonymize it if it's
Yeah.
necessary. And I think people always like to feel inspired by others, and I think this is one of the there is nothing more powerful than a story that we know happened and people manage
Yeah.
to break through with the societal barriers or their generational barriers and have managed to stand up and say, I'm doing this for myself and for my children, my partner, and it is advanced from what used to be in the previous generation. So
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say one other thing that is comes up is that we will feel that it's very hard in the process, right? And I think that's inevitable because we are very responsible human beings. We want good things for our children. We want good things for ourselves. So but it doesn't mean that just because it's hard that we should then divert ourselves and say, oh, I'm not doing it because it's too hard. Because I think hard also invites us to challenge our belief systems
yeah,
and challenge belief systems in ways that's going to be hard because going against the stream is always hard, right?
yeah,
But also that gives us so much more power over our ways of doing things, our ways of choosing things. And I think that's worth doing it anyway, because not doing it, I find, may harm us even more in the sense of us not being able to go for what we wanted and feeling like feeling lost or feeling like we're not really living what we thought we would at some point in our lives, right? So that may bring a lot more, I mean, harm or whatever the way you call it, than actually going through it, even if it's hard. So that's why my invitation would be to consider what is it, what are the experiences you will have if you go through this versus if you choose not to because you said it's hard, right? And then looking at what feelings come up. So, and then you can also make decisions that way.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I feel like it was a great way to talk about some of the yeah some of the challenges of wanting to have careers, wanting to have children, wanting to have different things at the same time. And I'm a firm believer that we can have all of them
Yeah,
at the same time together and going through that as well. So that's why I love this conversation. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you
thank
all
you so much.
for giving space to talk about this, right? So we will see you next week. And as Vicky said, if you want to share your story about this and how you've gone through and what you have thought, what decisions you've made, it would be amazing to hear from you as well. So have a beautiful week and speak to you next week.
Yeah, thank you.